Next, we'll move to our Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. We'll start off with, this is an informational item. We'll start off with Carl Empey, the Finance Director. Carl, you ready?
I am. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and board members. Happy holidays to each of you, and thank you for your public service and your contributions to USDB. The financial report this morning is for the 4 months ended October 31st. We are financially solvent and in a strong financial position. On the first report is the financial report. It shows that we've received inflows or transfers from the state and the state office in the amount of $15.4 million. Our outflows or our expenditures were $11.7 million. So our inflows exceeded our expenditures by about $3.6 million. A large part of that is the advance from the state office to help us pay our monthly transportation expense to Wasatch Transportation. The number of students that we served as of the end of October was 1,666. Our enrichment fund balance is $1.3 million. Our donated fund balance is $267,000, and the balance in our foundation account is just over $1 million. The next report that's just pulled up on the screen is the budget status report that gives all the granular detail of the numbers that I just reported. Are there any questions that any of the board members may have?
Questions from board members on the information that's been shared and also what's been in our packet? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Director, okay. Thank you.
All right. The next report is our donated funds report that just lists all of the accounts that we have that totals $267,000. And then the last one is our enrichment fund projects, where we've got $1.6 million in projects that have been approved. We've spent $221,000 through the end of October, and which gives us a balance of about $1.4 million to spend through the end of the year. That is my financial report for the month, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions.
Questions or comments from board members? Board member Belknap.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Carl. I have a couple of questions. One, if you have almost 1.4 million to use by the end of the school year, what are the plans for those, and do you have business cases for those?
We've got the biggest items are those last 3 items on the report, Chairman or Board Member Belknap. The audiology van for $200,000, a small school bus for $80,000, and the online course curriculum for the deaf school of $240,000. Those are all underway. The audiology van and the small bus need legislative approval in the general session. Our fiscal analysts have told us they're going to prioritize getting those passed as early as possible in the session, so we can then put the orders into fleet to go ahead and spend. I think an important part is these funds do not lapse, and so if we're not able to spend them by June 30th, they'll carry forward into next fiscal year. And so we've got, as you may recall in last month's discussion on the bus and the audiology van, it takes significant lead time because these all are custom built vehicles, and so it will take significant time for them to be built and delivered to USDB.
Thank you, Carl, for that clear explanation. And my one other, what is your student count in comparison to last year? I can't remember. And so are you have fewer students, same, or higher students this year?
We have just approximately about another 50 to 100 more students. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we are higher this year than we were last year.
Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions or comments. So Director Empey, thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll have our USDP Superintendent, Joe Coleman. We're ready for your report.
Thank you, board members. It's good to be with you today. You'll notice our agenda is a little shorter, just a financial report and a superintendent's report. We knew you had a lot of business to do, and December generally is a time when we're kind of on glide path before firing things up at the beginning of the year again. I have a few items though, and I thought Carl did a great job of explaining one of them, and board member Belknap's questions were right on point. Some of the reason we have a little bit of extra carry forward this year in enrichment funds is simply because of COVID. We haven't been able to execute some of those enrichment type activities, especially back in the spring. And I would not be surprised if, this year also we won't be doing like our study abroad trips and so forth. We have our fingers crossed, but all of that takes advanced planning. So even if things lighten up with vaccines and so forth, I just don't think it's likely that'll be happening either. So great questions there. COVID update from us. We now have over 200 screenings that we've done. And I think I indicated last month that we were approaching that number. Things are actually okay though. After the Thanksgiving break, we took a look at our numbers again, and I think we're down to only one class being online with remote learning right now. So that's the good news. We'll just keep monitoring that and see what happens in the meantime. We received, like other school districts, we received rapid testing materials for our athletes. And we've spent quite a bit of time this last week, and we're continuing to do that. Superintendent Tanner is spearheading that because she, in the deaf school, that's really the only place we have a sports team right now. We did not have enough girls. We could not get enough girls to participate to have a girls basketball team this winter. But we do have enough boys for the boys basketball team. So the good news is we'll be complying with everything, and we only have one group of kids to focus on, unlike large school districts who have so many different sports going on at the same time. So we're getting up to speed, and we'll be participating like all the other districts with that. Some great news about our foundation. You might have noticed that the press conference happened. We've got good feedback from that. I do not have numbers yet on if any specific donations have come in. That was earlier. That was last week. And so, but it was really an emphasis for this week. They had what's called Giving Tuesday. That's when all the donations and foundations and charities and fundraisers tend to happen for this giving season. And so I'll probably report more back on that in January. But we did receive a few in particular that I can discuss with you, even though I don't know the grand total of money that's come in. And essentially for the Christmas season, we have raised, I think we raised $15,000 for that, and we will be spending almost $20,000 on meeting the needs of some of our families who have needs beyond just what we normally provide as a school. Things like clothing and access and special things that they have need of. And so that's actually really exciting. And our schools, each of our program directors have sort of contributed to that. And so in the next couple of weeks, we'll be working at getting those things and providing them and distributing them. And that's really exciting to us. Last year, we had a donation from the Wagner Foundation for $10,000 at the last minute. And that was the first time we had done some of that. This year, it's essentially going to be twice that much. So I'm really happy about that. I think it's wonderful. Another item, speaking of school growth, is just this week we started looking at our Salt Lake campus in particular for the deaf school, which seems to be bursting at the seams with classes. And we're looking at the younger classes, preschool, kindergarten, first grade. Those classes are quite full. And then on the other end of things, our high school program is growing as well. And we've brought them back to our campuses, so they're getting better service now with electives where they'll go out to the local high schools with interpreters and get that. And we will probably be looking at moving some walls and reconfiguring things to make more classrooms Fortunately, we have quite large classrooms at that JMS building on our Salt Lake campus. And so, but when Carl mentioned that we have 100 to 150 more students this year, overall in the state, the numbers are up. And so that's good news. And those are the kind of challenges we like to have, which come from growing pains, because that means all of our efforts to get the word out there, families know that we are a resource for them. Whereas before, we found there were so many out in the different districts that weren't even aware that they had USDB as a resource if needed for their child. So that's the great news there. And I would be happy to, I have one more item, unless you have any questions on anything that I've said so far. Are there any questions?
I'm not seeing any hands raised, Superintendent.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to say was just a big thank you from USDB to the outgoing board members. And I thought it was great, the beginning of this meeting, the way we started. This is, we do so much business all the time together, but anyone who's participated in this, and I, both as a board member and now a direct employee as the superintendent for the board for USDB, we really do develop relationships, and this is a process that takes so much personal sacrifice, and we're all engaged in this noble work together. That it was fantastic to hear that. And I just want you to know, I don't know that you really understand how often we talk about the board in our daily work with the kids. I don't know that the teachers and the kids do, of course, but as a superintendency and an administration, your vision and your direction is our work and our vision. And our strategic plan is based upon what you have given us feedback and what you support with us. And in particular, the board members who are leaving, and this is their last meeting, I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you and getting to know you, some of you longer than others, but it means everything to us. And, this is our career, and this is part of our lives that is so critical that almost anything you say has a magnified effect in our lives. And I know that I speak for the associate superintendents and for Carl Empey and for everyone else at the leadership level of USDB. It used to not be this way, and we are grateful we have a close working relationship with the board and that you care enough. I don't know that any of you really understood when you joined the State Board of Education that there was this other thing attached to your responsibilities, and that you were actually going to serve on a board with for a school with children and not just over the whole system. But I think it's fantastic, and I'm really grateful for what you do. And I hope when you leave that you always have a soft spot in your heart for these young boys and girls who have sensory disabilities, because you are the ones that provide the backup and the support and the true governance for things that affect their lives in ways that would be significantly different if you didn't do what you do. So just a real heartfelt thanks from us at USDB and from me personally, since I work directly for you. And like Superintendent Dixon said, it is a unique thing to have 15 bosses. And there is not a day that goes by or a night that I go to sleep at night that I don't think in my mind, is there anything that I need to do that the board would want me to do that I'm not doing well? And so with those thanks, and I hope you have a great holiday season, and I hope this last meeting for some of you, if it is your last meeting, is a great experience. Thank you very much. And that's essentially my whole superintendent's report for today.
Questions, comments from board members? I'm not seeing any hands raised, Superintendent. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.